For 67 years, the script was predictable. The American president makes a demand. The Canadian prime minister objects, delays, maybe asks politely for concessions, and eventually gives in. They always give in because they believe they must. Because when you sleep beside an elephant, you do not provoke it. You simply hope it does not roll over. But yesterday, the elephant rolled over. Donald Trump attempted to corner Canada. He aimed directly at the heart of the Canadian economy. He demanded full submission on trade, on energy, on the border. He assumed the outcome was decided before the confrontation even began. But then something unexpected happened. Mark Carney did not blink. He did not raise his voice. Before we go further, if you want sharp geopolitical analysis the mainstream avoids, subscribe and leave a comment. Your engagement helps this reporting reach more people. He did not post in all caps on social media. He simply refused. And that quiet refusal is echoing loudly inside the White House. We are witnessing a shift in the global order unfold in real time. You are seeing the moment the United States realizes that intimidation only works when the other side is afraid. And right now, Canada is not afraid. Canada is calculating. In the next 58 minutes, I will walk you through exactly what happened in the last 27 hours. I will show you the receipts, the leaked documents, the trade figures, and the anxiety spreading through American supply chains at this moment. Because while Trump is making noise, Carney is making history. And if you think this is only about milk or lumber or steel, you are missing the larger story. This is about who truly holds power in North America. And for the first time in a century, it may not be the occupant of the Oval Office. Buckle up. The rules have changed. Let's remove the noise and examine the raw timeline, because if you rely on mainstream coverage, you hear about tensions and discussions. This is not a discussion, it is a collision. 6 days ago, the Trump White House sent a memorandum of understanding to Ottawa. In diplomatic language, that means a list of demands. But these were not routine adjustments. This was not about tweaking dairy prices or speeding up passport checks. It read like a surrender document. Sources in Washington report that the demands included a complete rewrite of the USMCA energy clause, granting the United States unrestricted access to Canadian hydroelectric power and oil at below-market rates. It required Canada to abandon its digital services tax immediately. And most striking, it demanded Canada align its foreign policy on China entirely with Washington's preferences. The warning attached was blunt. If Canada did not sign within 54 hours, Trump would impose a universal 31% tariff on every product crossing the northern border: cars, oil, food, everything. Normally, this is when the Canadian Prime Minister flies to Washington, shakes hands, smiles for cameras, and concedes a measure of sovereignty to preserve peace. That has been the pattern. But Mark Carney rejected the pattern. Yesterday afternoon, instead of traveling to Washington, Carney held a press conference in Ottawa. He did not appear shaken. He did not appear angry. He looked composed, like a central banker reviewing troubling numbers. He approached the podium and did not even mention Trump by name. He stated simply that Canada would not sign the memorandum. He said Canada's resources belong to Canadians. Then he delivered the critical point. If the United States imposes tariffs, Canada will not merely respond. Canada will immediately trigger Clause 17. We will discuss Clause 17 shortly and why it caused Wall Street traders to spill their coffee. But understand the atmosphere in that room. This was not political theater. It was a leader calmly telling a bully, "Go ahead, try it." Trump's response was immediate. He posted on his social media platform calling Carney weak and labeling him a globalist. He threatened to build a wall along the northern border. He accused Canada of ingratitude. But shouting only works if people are listening. And while Trump was shouting, Carney was making calls to the European Union, to Mexico, to governors in Michigan and New York who fear losing Canadian trade. What happened yesterday was more than rejecting a trade proposal. It was rejecting the assumption that the United States owns Canada. It was a declaration of modern economic independence. And the most troubling part for Trump is that he does not have a clear next move. He holds a hammer, sees a nail, but the nail just stood up and walked away. You may think politicians exchange tough words all the time. What makes this different? The evidence does. The data shows this is not rhetoric. It is economic warfare, and Canada arrived prepared. Consider receipt number 1, the energy grid. Trump often speaks about energy dominance, drilling, oil, gas, imagining America as self-contained. But examine the map. New York City, Boston, much of the Northeast Corridor depends significantly on power from Hydro-Quebec. When Carney rejected the demands, he was not only defending national pride, he was safeguarding the switch that keeps Broadway illuminated. The leaked memo suggests Trump sought to lock in low rates for that power. Carney refused. This morning, electricity futures in the Northeast jumped 21% in 5 hours. Markets understand the implications. If a trade war begins, Canada does not need dramatic gestures. Routine maintenance on a transmission line or adjustments to export capacity could darken major cities. Receipt number 2, the auto sector. The American auto industry is deeply North American. A single car component may cross the U.S.-Canada border up to 10 times before assembly is complete. It is an intricate web. Severing it causes harm on both sides. When Trump threatened a 31% tariff, he believed Canada would suffer most. Yet a leaked letter from Michigan's governor warns the White House that 3 major assembly plants would shut down within 3 days if tariffs proceed. 3 days. Carney understands this reality. He knows Midwestern workers would face layoffs first if the supply chain fractures. He is not threatening Canada's stability. He is highlighting the risk to America's own foundation. Receipt number 3, Clause 17. This obscure trade provision addresses non-market economies and strategic resources. It allows a country to redirect critical mineral exports if national security is at risk. Canada holds vast reserves of lithium, cobalt, and uranium, materials essential for defense systems and electric vehicles. By invoking Clause 17, Carney signals readiness to sell these resources to Europe and Japan instead of the United States. Canadian mining firms with European contracts rose 10% this morning. Markets believe Carney's resolve. Receipt number 4, the silence of allies. The United Kingdom, France, Germany, none have rushed to defend Washington's position. They are observing carefully. If Canada withstands this pressure, it demonstrates that resistance is possible. The bill accumulating on Trump's desk appears increasingly costly. To grasp why this confrontation is unfolding, consider Trump's strategy. He operates on maximum pressure, make threats large, loud, and intimidating, and the opponent collapses. That approach succeeded in past business battles and political disputes. But here, predictability weakens him. Carney anticipates each move. It is like facing a chess player who only advances the queen. Aggressive, yes, but once contained, vulnerable. Trump's leverage is not as absolute as he assumes. 14 years ago, perhaps the U.S. economy stood alone. Today, Canada maintains free trade agreements with the European Union and Asia through the CPTPP. It is the only G7 nation with free trade access to every other G7 country. Carney helped construct those relationships for moments like this. While Trump amplifies threats, tariffs, border closures, sanctions, changing tactics repeatedly within hours signals instability, not strength. Senators from border states report pressure from farmers and businesses dependent on Canadian trade. Fear loses value when overused. Many Americans are not frightened by tweets. They are fatigued. Carney appears to be counting on that fatigue. His strategy resembles a matador's patience. Do not fight the bull directly. Step aside and let momentum carry it forward. This channel does not idolize politicians. They are public servants. Yet skill deserves acknowledgement. Previous leaders attempted personal diplomacy with Trump. Carney approaches differently. He focuses on systems and markets. As a former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, he understands global financial mechanisms intimately. He sees volatility where others see spectacle. His response is structural, not theatrical. He is not merely rejecting a document. He is repositioning an economy.trade deal. He is activating a network. Notice the language he uses. He does not say insult or unfair. He says stability, certainty, rule of law. Why? Because those are the words Wall Street trusts. Those are the words CEOs trust. By presenting himself as the adult in the room, he makes Trump appear like the risk. He is essentially telling global investors, if you invest in America, it could be shaken by a tweet at 3:00 a.m. If you invest in Canada, it is secure. We respect the rules. He is weaponizing calm. He is turning Canada into a safe haven in a world that feels set on fire by Trump. This is a long-game strategy. Trump thinks in 2 24-hour news cycles. Carney thinks in one-year bond yields. And the brilliance of this move is its quiet nature. It does not require rallies. It does not require red hats. It only requires competence. He is building a coalition of the willing. He signals to Europe, we stand with you. He signals to American governors, we are your partners. Your president is the problem. It is a wedge strategy. He is driving a wedge between Donald Trump and the United States of America. He is betting that America is larger than one man, and he is betting that Canada can endure the turbulence long enough for Trump to stumble. It is risky, extremely risky. If Trump follows through with the 31% tariffs, Canada will feel pain. Prices will rise in Toronto and Vancouver. Families will feel the strain. Carney understands this, but he also understands that surrender would be worse. He knows that if he gives in today, Trump will return next month demanding more. He has decided that the cost of fighting is high, but the cost of surrender is endless. That is leadership. That is the difference. So why should you care? Maybe you live in Ohio. Maybe you live in Texas. Maybe you live in Alberta or London. Why does this standoff matter to your daily life? Because this is not just a trade dispute. It marks the end of the post-war arrangement. For 89 years, the understanding was simple. The U.S. leads and others prosper alongside it. That understanding is fading. Trump ended it, and Carney is closing the chapter. If this fracture continues, here is what it means for you. First, prices. If the border tightens and tariffs hit, your grocery bill changes overnight, not by cents, but by dollars. Winter produce moving through cross-border supply chains, cars, appliances, building materials. Inflation already hurts. This would push it into crisis. Second, jobs. Millions of jobs on both sides of the border rely on smooth trade flows. If you work in manufacturing, logistics, or retail, you are on the front lines of this conflict. But the biggest consequence is trust. For decades, Canada was the steady neighbor, the dependable ally. If the U.S. loses Canada, it stands alone. Imagine a world where America negotiates with Canada as if it were a hostile power. Imagine needing a visa to visit Montreal. Imagine Canadian oil flowing to China instead of Texas refineries. That weakens America. It makes America poorer. It makes the world more dangerous. Carney's refusal acts as a mirror. He is holding it up to America and asking, is this who you want to be? If you are American, understand that your president is gambling with your economic security to score political points. He is treating your closest ally like an adversary and pushing them toward your rivals. And if you are Canadian, this is your test. This is when you learn whether your country is sovereign or merely subordinate. Carney has placed the bet. Now you live with the spin of the wheel. This reshapes the map. Literally, we see a North America divided, cautious, and preparing defenses. The longest peaceful border in the world is no longer guaranteed. That idea is fading before our eyes, and once it disappears, you cannot simply vote it back. There was a moment yesterday that captured everything. It was not the speech. It was not the tweet. It was a photograph from the Peace Bridge between Buffalo and Fort Erie. An American driver at the wheel. A Canadian gate ahead. For the first time in his career, the gate was lowered. Routine inspection, officials said, but behind him, trucks lined up for 7 miles. That image feels like the future. If this is not resolved, that driver becomes you, waiting in the cold, paying for an ego battle in Washington. So what happens next? Let's consider the scenarios. Scenario A, Trump folds. It is the most likely outcome, though he would never call it that. He watches markets slide. He hears donors protest. He declares a great victory, claims Canada conceded something minor they agreed to years ago, and withdraws the tariff threat. He proclaims success and moves on. Carney remains quiet, nods politely, and prepares for the next round. Scenario B, escalation. Trump's pride takes control. He imposes the 31% tariffs. Canada retaliates immediately. The border slows to a crawl. Within 121 days, the U.S. economy slips into recession. Inflation surges. Republicans scramble to restrain him, but the damage is done. This is the scorched earth path. Scenario C, the breakaway. The tariffs remain, but at lower levels. Canada accelerates its pivot to Europe and Asia. Over 8 years, North America gradually decouples. The U.S. grows more isolated while Canada becomes a transatlantic power, closer to London and Berlin than to Washington. A lasting drift. Carney is preparing for Scenario C. He hopes for Scenario A, but he is ready for Scenario B. This is usually where leaders de-escalate, but Trump does not do calm, and Carney does not do surrender. So we sit in that truck's cab, watching snowfall, waiting to see if the gate lifts. The world is shifting. Old maps no longer guide us. Donald Trump believed he could bully reality. He believed raising his voice would force Canada to kneel. But Mark Carney reminded him of a simple political truth. Power depends on options. And right now, Canada has options. America has fewer. This is not only about trade. It is about dignity. It is about what happens when a friend is pushed too far. Carney did not shout. He raised the cost of ignoring Canada. Now Trump must choose. Does he want a trade war he might lose or a peace he cannot boast about? I want your perspective. Is Carney playing a brilliant hand, or is he provoking a force that could crush Canada's economy? Is Trump projecting strength, or is he being exposed? This is history unfolding. Do not just watch it. Understand it. Share your view in the comments below. I read every one. And if you want to know what happens when markets open Monday, if you want the update before mainstream headlines catch up, subscribe and turn on notifications. The gate is down, and we are waiting for the impact. Gosh.